What is up, Def Leppard fans, hard rock and metal fans in general? So, this is an interesting video that I've been wanting to do for a while. Why I say so is because many fans, when I did the original review of the Euphoria album, the entire Def Leppard discography about 10 years ago, yeah, hard to believe it's been that long, were very curious to know why I was not very satisfied with the Euphoria album. I mean, most fans, in fact, many fans were, because they weren't huge on the slang sound. They didn't think it, really meshed well with what they expected from the band. Of course, Slang still remains my favorite Def Leppard album, but I digress. So when it came time for Euphoria to be made, I mean, they had a lot of, big things happening. They decided to go back to the big sound of the 1980s. They worked for a few days with, their famous producer, Mutt Lange. In fact, I think he co-wrote, if I remember right, about three songs. So he was on All Night, he was on It's Only Love, and Promises, if I'm not wrong. So the thing is that they had that. They also had, a neighbor of, Rick Savage's at that time, which I think was Formula One driver Damon Hill, if I'm not getting his name wrong. Yeah, I think it was Damon Hill, and he essentially played, a guitar solo. Well, the outro guitar solo for the song "Demolition Man," right? So, all things considered, Euphoria had the makings to be a really big album, and the band really wanted to get back. The environment had changed. Grunge was no longer the so-called, big threat for many of the traditional hard rock bands. It had also gone through its own evolution. Of course, I still love many of the bands from that movement, but Leopard was really poised to do something really big and huge. And of course, they made the effort to do so, but the end result always felt a little mixed. It didn't feel like the band had made the right song choices. It didn't feel like the band had put their best foot forward. It was almost like they were second guessing themselves. And while Euphoria remains a very loved album even till today, and it did very well in terms of sales and so on, there were many things about it which over the years, fans have pointed out. And even if I remember correctly, Joe Elliott recently said that they could have probably done a bit more. It wasn't really the standout record they were hoping for. There was probably a little bit more they could have worked on and done. And so with that, I thought it would be fun to actually, put it all together in one video and actually present to you what I think should have been the ideal album, including what I envision to be the album artwork, given what kind of stellar artwork the band used to put out, at that point. And I always felt the Euphoria artwork was really flat and lame. So with that, let's just quickly revisit the album. And obviously, as you've seen on the screen for the last, couple of minutes, you have the track listing here and what the band, stylistically was looking like at that point, which I felt, wasn't their best look. I felt that the look that they had during the Vault and Slang era was far better, in terms of their slightly longer hair, the tougher look, so to speak. And many of these songs were good. I think the mixing could have been a lot better, maybe more in the vein of what they did on Slang and on Retroactive, especially because I think those two albums have a really good, mix and production value to them. Not discounting, of course, what Mutt Lange did, way back with Nigel Green and everyone else in the 1980s. But I think from a mixing standpoint, that's where it would be. And so, without further ado, I would think that if I were to pick certain songs and put it together, I did find an image that would sort of closely resemble the kind of artwork I envisioned way back in '99. So I was very fortunate to find something to give you an idea what I had in my head, which is sort of, more in the vein of a comic book style, which is something that, as you guys know, I'm a big comic book fan. So there's that. So without further ado, this is what I envisioned. This would be on your left, the artwork, roughly as to what it would have looked like, because I always imagine them, have with a deck of cards, kind of like, do they draw the ace on this and so on. Obviously, now some of you might say, well, did I have Muda ahead in my mind? Yes, I was a sort of a fan at that point and so on. But I sort of envisioned that, something like this could have been what the artwork could have looked like. It would have really stood out. It would have been something that everyone would have gotten. They could have really had a cool theme around that entire thing. And coming to the actual track listing itself, here's what I think. You kick it off with Demolition Man. You go to Promises, Back in Your Face, Goodbye. Same as the original recording and, track flow. The next thing that you'll notice is that we go into the song Burnout. Now, Burnout, with a few other songs, was an additional song recorded at the time. It was, put as one of the single, bonus songs. So at that time when we had singles like CDs and so on, And of course, we still have singles today, but just to give it that added value. But I think Burnout was a very strong track. Many fans agree with me. It should have been on the record. So I would, in fact, take off the god awful All Night. I hate that song, as you guys know. I'm sorry for those guys who love it. I mean, more power to you, but I just could not stand it. So I would put Burnout in here. You have Paper Sun. I would throw out the soppy It's Only Love. I'm sorry, another track I just did not like. And I would put in the song Immortal. I'm going to link these songs below, guys, so you can hear it for yourself and see whether you agree or disagree. I would put Immortal. I would obviously have 20th Century Girl, but I would knock off that Shalala thing, which I felt sounded a little weird. I just didn't like that full title. So 21st Century Girl. To Be Alive, Disintegrate, criminally underrated track. As you guys know, I think they should be playing this song, on their concert tours and so on. Definitely should happen. Guilty, Day After Day, Worlds Collide. And I really think over here, just listening to it, I think that if they had gotten Joanne Jett, to sing along with Joe, I think that could have really elevated that track. I mean, there's just something about it that just screams that, at least to me, she should have been on that track at that time, given the time and era when it came out. I think it could have worked so well. And I Am Your Churn. Now, this was the bonus track for the Euphoria album in the Japanese market, but I think it's just a wonderful album closer. I would have put it over here. So these would be the 14 tracks that I would pick and choose. And obviously the B-sides would be the rejects, which I just can't stand, which would be All Night, It's Only Love, and I'm sorry, Kings of Oblivion. I know there are a lot of fans for this track, but it just doesn't work for me. Like I said before, remember in my original review, there's something about the mix and Rick Savage's bass getting lost and all of that. There's just something about this track that just doesn't work for me. Under My Wheels was obviously an Alice Cooper track, and it's something that, again, could have been a bonus, which it was. And Who Do You Love, which I think came on the Goodbye single, CD, if I'm not wrong. And again, I really would have liked to have included, but just in terms of the flow and how this album would have felt, have to keep it off. So these would be my 14 tracks, guys. What do you think? Finally, here it is. This is what I had sort of envisioned in my mind, as a young fan. I still think till today, that this should have been more or less in the vein of, how the album should have been. But love to know your thoughts. And with that, thank you so much for those who have always written and supported me. Love to hear from you. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What would be your take on this entire thing? Much love and rock on.